Chloe here with Cross Country Mortgage. Against all odds, CCM has just closed the Garcia's dream home in 21 days. I was able to speak with their top loan officer before they went into the locker room, and he said it was a matter of dedication. Ultimately, they leaned on their experience as a team. They've been here before. They've done all types of loans. Simply put, CCM loan officers know how to close as a team for your dream home. Cross Country Mortgage is dedicated to getting it done. Back to you in the studio. Cross Country Mortgage, LLC, NMLS 3029, www.nmlsconsumeraccess.org. Equal housing opportunity.
A lot of us are looking for ways to start our day feeling more joy and appreciation. And while some of us write gratitude lists or do yoga, others pour themselves a bowl of their favorite cereal, Honey Nut Cheerios. Because not only are Honey Nut Cheerios delicious, they can help lower cholesterol as part of a heart-healthy diet. So maybe the secret to a great mood all day is a little yoga. Then writing your gratitude list over a bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios. Learn more about a heart-healthy lifestyle at Cheerios.com.
The process of what we do is you recognize that losing is part of the journey. Everyone who's competed has lost at some point or another. So you start to take losses and recognize that there are ways that you can improve to try to reverse your fortune next time, and that you can't take any of them personal.
Hey folks, welcome to Adventure Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Mason. Typically on Thursday, we do a Throwback Thursday episode from just an episode we had in our archives. But today we're going to do something a little different. We are going to listen to something that's a little more timely from my other show called Without Compromise, which is through Athletic Brewing, where I work, and the podcast I host through them. And we have a lot of pro athletes and ambassadors and all kinds of cool stuff. Well, one of our athletes that I just interviewed right before this competition was Jordan Burroughs. And if you know anything about Jordan Burroughs, he's one of the greatest American freestyle wrestlers of all time. So that Olympic wrestling sport, like one of the oldest sports out there. He's probably one of the greatest Americans. He is one of the greatest Americans of all time. And he just literally over the weekend won his 6th world title when you count his Olympic gold medal in 2012. And he's one of the most winningest, one of those most medaled of all time. And I thought it was pretty cool that the timing was right when we released an episode for Without Compromise. And so I thought, Throwback Thursday episodes, let's just do something from Without Compromise. And the reason I think, it's definitely a stretch it's not adventure sports. I will just go ahead and say that. But what it is someone pursuing excellence for a long time. Jordan's been at this for over 10 years now, and he's still winning championships. And by the way, this most recent world championship, he jumped up a weight class, which you hardly ever do, for the first time in his career, and won the championship there too, which is kind of crazy. But all this to say, it's not adventure sports, but I think the principles that Jordan talks about and the ideas that he lives by, I think are applicable to anyone's life, especially adventure sports. He talks a lot about striving through failures, his duties as balancing his competition and his professional life with being a dad and having, responsibilities, and just pursuing a passion and a dream. Relentlessly for decades. So I think a lot of us are in that boat. Maybe you're just getting started in your adventure sports journey. Jordan's going to teach you a lot. He talks a lot about different mindsets, and he credits his mental strength to being what's been carrying him through all this, such a long tenured career. So I hope you'll learn something. It's really different, I know, for the show. We don't really often do this, but considering he just won, I would love to feature him and just share some of the insight with you. And if you'd like to check out Without Compromise, definitely just Google it or go to athleticbrewing.com. And if you want to try some of our non-alcoholic craft beer, reach out to me. I'd love to, share a discount or something with you and get some samples out to folks. But anyway, here's the episode. Jordan Burroughs, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so you mentioned this before we were talking, but where are you coming from today? And is that where you grew up?
Yeah, so I'm from South Jersey originally. I grew up in a small town, Sicklerville, New Jersey, about 25 miles outside of Philadelphia. I've been living in Lincoln, Nebraska for the last 15 years. Since college, I decided to stick around and train here. And then just in July of this summer, moved back to the East Coast with my family to be closer to my immediate family. So just made a transition to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the city of brotherly love, and we're enjoying the journey so far. It's been a good place to live.
So I don't know what the stats are, but I don't think there's a lot of people going from Jersey to Nebraska and then to Philly. And you were there for 15 years, so it wasn't like, a quick stint. That's half your life, honestly. What has that transition been like? That's got to be tough. I mean, Nebraska's got to be a totally different pace.
It is. It's a different place. It's an awesome place to raise a family. It's very comfortable. It's inexpensive to live. The people are extremely nice. The Midwestern hospitality. The schooling is great, and we have a great wrestling program here. So it's been home for me for a long time. I decided to stick around, and mostly because of the relationships that I established here. So good being around the coaching staff and all the athletes here. I was a big fish in a small pond. Going to Philadelphia is a little different, a lot more hectic, but also a lot of good benefits that we've experienced so far. A lot of diversity, a lot of culture, a lot of great food. I'm 25 miles from my hometown where my parents still live in the house that I grew up. And the wrestling culture is really strong in the tri-state area. So we've really enjoyed the past couple of months that we've had there. I'm training with the PRTC right at the University of Pennsylvania in downtown Philadelphia. So it's different, man. We went from living in a home here with a backyard and a porch and a driveway to living in an apartment building in downtown Philadelphia. So it's a big transition, but the kids are enjoying themselves so far, and my wrestling is still operating at a high level. So, when we made this transition, it was to have a holistic lifestyle. Can I still compete at my best and make sure that my family is happy and taken care of? My kids are in great schools with people that they enjoy spending time around that are going to help them thrive. And so all of those things have been checked off thus far. So Philadelphia is a good city.
I know, growing up in Jersey, you came from a household that was into sports, but not necessarily athletic. Why wrestling? Why did, that's just not a sport a lot of kids maybe get into in that area? You correct me if I'm wrong. How did it get started?
Yeah, basically I just brought home a flyer from my elementary school one day that said, join your local youth wrestling program. We were the Edgewood Eagles, and I had never wrestled before. I wasn't a fan of wrestling, never watched it. No one in my family had ever wrestled, but I think it was something that I was into because I was into the WWF as a kid. I used to watch a lot of professional wrestling on TV, so I thought it was similar to that. Plus, I remember the graphic had like this really buff eagle and like a wrestling singlet, so I just thought it looked really cool aesthetically. So I remember my mom took me down to the gym later that week, and it was a completely different experience than what I expected, right? Like guys weren't jumping off the tight ropes, and people weren't getting hit with chairs and slammed through tables. It was the exact opposite. It was a much more technical sport, much more of an art form. But I was a little guy. I was the youngest of four. My first weight class was 45 pounds. So I started at about 6, and I was a small individual. I was the run of the family. But I was scrappy. So I think that's what kind of helped me kind of utilize my skills. I was scrappy. I was competitive, and wrestling was kind of one of those outlets where I just enjoyed it right away. And wrestling is not for everyone. It's a very intimate sport. It's like no one likes getting slammed and choked and held down against their will. But it was something about it that I don't know, man, my personality just fit. And so when I won my first trophy, it was kind of what drew me in and kept me in. And so every tournament afterwards, from there on out, I would go to the trophy room before the tournament started and look at all the trophies that were going to be given out at the end of the day. And my dad would always point to the tallest trophy in the room and say, hey, you see that tall one over there in the corner? If you win all your matches today, that's the first place trophy. That's the one you'll take home. And so that inspired me. And that was my pursuit every weekend. My dad was my first coach, and he never wrestled a day in his life. He knew nothing about the sport. He knew no technique, but he knew principles. So the only thing he would tell me is work hard, don't give up, and if I lose, not to cry. Those were really the only things that he he would tell me. He never gave me any technical like advice, never told me, okay, hands here, head here, foot placement here, finish this shot this way, double leg. It was all principles, and but it worked out, man. So it was good for me.
So I know the first two you've stuck to. Has the third one? Have you been able to stick to that too?
No, I've cried in the Olympics. I cried at the World Championships. I've cried many times in my career. At this point, you cry less. When I was a kid, I cried every single time, and the tournaments were meaningless. But it's all relative, right? Like at that time, all I got was a trophy. But as you get older, you put more work into it. And so I think that the harder you work, the harder it is to surrender. You recognize all the sacrifices you've made to pursue your goals. And so that's why it's more difficult to swallow when you've given everything you've had. You've operated with courage. You've lived your lifestyle the right way. You've slept well. You've eaten well. You've taken care of your body. You've listened to your coaches. You've worked hard with your training partners, and still sometimes that's not enough. There's no guarantees in this sport. So when you have to face that, it's a difficult thing to operate with psychologically. So there have been a lot of nights that I've cried to my wife, and just kind of battling back with my emotions and figuring out, okay, what's next? I think the process of what we do is you recognize that losing is part of the journey. Everyone who's competed has lost at some point or another. So I think that you start to take losses and recognize that there are ways that you can improve to try to reverse your fortune next time, and that you can't take any of them personal. You have to have the ability to forget quickly and move on from tournament to tournament, event to event, and maintain the same level of enthusiasm and optimism in everything that you do. And so that's kind of what's helped me get through this career at this juncture. I'm 11 years into my senior level career, but I've been wrestling since I was 6.
I love to think about you at 6 years old saying like, all right, Mom, they're gonna let us hit people with chairs and jump off tight ropes. Let's go. And then seeing it was something so different and having to learn all those lessons, something so technical. When did it become apparent to you that you would be able to make this a career, or you did have a future in this versus just something you had a passion for?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would probably say somewhere between my sophomore, junior year of high school is when I recognized where this sport could actually take me. Because when you're young, like, it's all about, there are only a few things that I wanted. I wanted to be praised by my family, basically by my parents, my dad. I wanted to have my name in the newspaper possibly. And I wanted to win really big trophies to display to all my friends that came and visited my house. And that was pretty much it. That was the only circumstances in which I was excited about. But when I got older, I started to realize, like, man, like, I could do things. I can improve my life with this. I could get out of this small town. I could go to college. I could get it paid for. I could maybe go on to do some incredible things and have a career out of this. But it was at every level, you recognize that there's more. First, it was biggest trophies, and it was recognition and validation from my dad. And it was state championship, a varsity jacket, and my name in the paper. And it became a scholarship. And it became, man, maybe I could be a big dog on campus and be recognized here as one of the elite at the University of Nebraska and write my name in the record books. And then it transitioned to maybe I could be the best in the world. Maybe I could be the best in history. Maybe I can inspire a new generation of wrestlers that'll come be after me. So it constantly shifts depending upon, where you are in your career. And so probably my sophomore year is when I realized that I could do this at the next level. Like, it wasn't just something that was a hobby that my parents paid for to buy time and to let me, utilize my energy, my extra energy as a toddler. It became something that I realized that I could turn into a profession and as a means to kind of improve the lifestyle that I had been born with.
I've heard you talk about this concept like camping versus climbing. There's a lot of campers out there. What keeps you from camping at a place that's comfortable? Why do you keep climbing?
It's unique, the position that we're in, because when you're satisfied with what you've accomplished, it's easy to settle into this role of comfort. But you also have to remember that if you settle into this place, you can also tarnish the legacy that you've worked extremely hard to build. So my advice to people who don't have the passion to do it the way they once did is to get out. If you don't want to compete at your best, then leave. You can retire. But if you're going to stay, then you have to be focused and you have to remain with that same fervor and energy that you had as a young man. So that's really all it has been for me. It's like, although your body might deteriorate over time, you'll start to get older and you'll slow down. Like, my spirit is unconquerable. I always have the ability to control my effort and my attitude, no matter how my body feels. So I've had injuries, I've had surgeries, I've had losses, but the one thing that's never deterred me from achieving my goals is my current circumstance. I've always been focused. So it's just like, when people ask me how long I want to compete, I'm like, I have no idea. The only thing I know is how many championships I want to win. So my focus is on the titles and not on how I feel. How I feel ebbs and flows and changes by the day and by the moment, but my goals don't. And so every time I reach something that I set out to do, I try to do something bigger, or I try to do the same goal more times at a higher level with even more pizzazz than the time before. So it's just the way I'm built. It's the cloth that I've been cut from. And I recognize all of the benefits that come with hard work. Like, all the people that I admire that live lives that are admirable are the ones that work hard, stay disciplined, and have a lot of courage in the way that they move. So that's what I just try to replicate.
It's that mental toughness that you're so known for. What do you do specifically, or anything in particular, to gain that? Is it tied directly to that physical training and that physical toughness? Is the mental within that, or is it separate in a way that you work on separately?
That's a good question. I think, it really, it's hard to say, man. I think you try to work on your mind. In sport, we were talking about this today. So there's a spectrum. There's two things that are really important to being great at athletics. One is work ethic. The other is courage. You have to have the ability to work, but the ability to work without having courage will sabotage your willingness to be great. So it's like, sometimes the harder you work, the less courage you need, because you're like, well, I worked really hard. I did everything right. So I should just win. It should be easy for me. And then there's the opposites, the guys that have so much courage, which they're just absolute savages. They're gamers. They're ready to compete at the whim. But if you don't have the work ethic, then you won't be consistent enough in your daily routine to even sustain the courage that you have when the time comes. So I think that we're constantly working on our mindset, whether it's visualization, putting ourselves in difficult circumstances, operating in places of discomfort, and really just stepping out of our comfort zone and seeing who we can become. Like, that's the ultimate measure of a man, is like where they stand in times of discomfort. Like, it's easy to do things that you feel good about, that you're passionate about, and that you love. Like, can your commitment to what you set out to do supersede your feelings on days that you don't feel like training? There are plenty of days I don't feel like going to the wrestling room. I don't feel like being courageous. I don't feel like pushing myself to my limits. I'm hungry, I'm tired, and I haven't slept. But those are the days that I feel like I make the biggest improvements, because I've controlled my mind and I've forced my body to stick with a routine because I've been committed to it. Not because I loved it, not because I was in love with it, but because I made a commitment to being the best at something. And when you do that, you have to stay the course no matter what. So I think for us, we try to stay dialed in on our mental focus as much as possible, not only training our bodies, but training our minds.
That's going to last a lot longer than your body too. And I know you got a ton of wrestling still left. But I do want to ask, what are you most excited or what do you currently do that most excites you about putting that mental toughness to work? Because that's transferable anywhere. Parenting, career, entrepreneurialism. Where are you most excited to use that side of things?
And I really in everything, bro. Like I've wrestled since I was a kid, so it's always been the most important thing to me. Everything I've learned from a character perspective has been learned through the sport of wrestling: discipline, integrity, honor, strength, persistence, resilience. Everything that I've learned from wrestling, I implement into every facet of my life. So it's not like, oh, I learned how to be a better wrestler from being a husband. It's like, no, I'm a good husband because I first was a good wrestler. I'm a good father because I first was a good wrestler. And so everything that I've achieved has come strictly through wrestling. Like, you have to operate with strength and honor and integrity in everything that you do. And so the result of that is success. And so I've been the firsthand representation that hard work works. Hard work works. And so when I work hard in every facet of my life, the way that I operate as, as a peer, as a teammate, as a father, as a husband, as a leader, it's been a lot easier for me because I've wrestled. And so they're not easy, but they're a lot less difficult because I'm prepped for it. And so I think that's why wrestlers transition well to everything that they do, whether it's, other sports, MMA, the NFL, or, being great employees, being CEOs, business owners, entrepreneurs. There's just a certain spirit about wrestlers that we operate with a sense of humility, but also with a strong sense of character and discipline and like a warrior-like spirit. We work well with teams. We know how to listen. We know how to take criticism and then implement it into a strategy, how to be in difficult times, how to skip meals and still perform at a high level, how to get our butts kicked and still operate with confidence. A lot that I've learned in this sport is how I operate in life. And I don't think there's any sport like it. There are a lot of sports out there that are great for character development, but this is the greatest sport in the world. There's truly nothing like it. Once you've wrestled, everything else in life becomes easier.
It's definitely unique, man. I tell you what, I don't think I've met or talked to anybody that's a wrestler that isn't just tough as nails. I always want to ask this about Olympic champions as well, Olympic gold medalists, which are one. What's been the biggest change you've noticed, pre-gold medal Jordan and post-gold medal Jordan, like how people perceive you, what life is like? And is there anything about pre-Olympic gold that you miss? Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible.
Chloe here with Cross Country Mortgage. Against all odds, CCM has just closed the Garcia's dream home in 21 days. I was able to speak with their top loan officer before they went into the locker room, and he said it was a matter of dedication. Ultimately, they leaned on their experience as a team. They've been here before. They've done all types of loans. Simply put, CCM loan officers know how to close as a team for your dream home. Cross Country Mortgage is dedicated to getting it done. Back to you in the studio. Cross Country Mortgage, LLC, NMLS 3029, www.nmlsconsumeraccess.org. Equal housing opportunity.
Some read self-help books. Others use meditation. At New Balance, it's believed that peace can be found with a run. The lessons learned while running your race are a blueprint for overcoming obstacles and achieving balance in life. Go beyond the run at newbalance.com.
That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode.
Yeah, man, that's such a great perception. Yeah, but I mean, nothing's as fun as the first time. When you do something for the first time, it's truly incredible. Like, there's a certain level of obliviousness and naivety that you operate with, so you don't really enjoy it as much because you don't have as much perspective. But it's also so cool because it's the first time, and so after, there's a certain level of expectation that follows you, where you know what you're capable of, you know what you've done, and now the world's like, okay, can you do it again? So now the pressure, the anxiety, the expectation rises. So I think the beauty pre-Olympics is, you're operating from a place of this childlike wonder. Where you're like, man, this is super cool. I can't believe I'm here. I used to watch this on TV. Oh my goodness, there's Kobe Bryant and LeBron James, and there's Serena Williams, Michael Phelps. Like, this is sweet. To, you start to shift your patterns to, man, I was a gold medalist in 2012. I got to do it again. And I haven't won a gold medal. It's been 9 years since I was an Olympic gold medalist. It's time to, to recapture this. I'm running out of time. I'm getting older. My career's coming to an end. I'm not as good as I once was. So there's all these doubts that you're battling psychologically pretty much daily. And that can be tough to deal with at times. But I think what I have learned is that if I do win the Olympics again, it will be much more special and meaningful to me than the first time. Although it changed my life and my perspective and how I viewed myself, how other people viewed me, I also understand that there's so much more work that's been put in between who I was then and who I am now. I've had to do a lot to maintain for a decade since, and so I think ever since I stepped off the podium in London in 2012, I've been trying to replicate that performance and trying to get back on the podium. But it's hard, man. It's a hard thing to do. So, I think at this point, I love what I was able to do then because of who it allowed me to become, all the opportunities and benefits that I had post London, forever, for the rest of my life. You're never former, never past. You're always an Olympian. You're always an Olympic gold medalist. That's something that can never be taken away. And the UFC and boxing, if you lose, you give up your belt.
Yep. Former world champion or former this or that.
Right. You have to give your belt to the guy that beat you. But I'll never, my gold medal is always safe on my bookshelf at my home. Wherever I live, my medal will follow me, not only for a lifetime, but beyond your death. When I die, people will be talking about my wrestling career for the rest of time. As long as the sport of freestyle wrestling exists in the United States of America and around the world, the name Jordan Burroughs would be synonymous with it.
And you maybe want to get out and go get a gold medal. Dadgum, I don't know what it'd be in, but start training now. It's awesome. Because you got 3 kids and one on the way. You get to involve them. I know they travel with you. It's a family ordeal. And that Burroughs name is going to be carried on for generations. That is so cool. I'd love to transition into a handful of rapid fire questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
Rapid fire number 1. What are you most curious about right now outside of wrestling?
Wow. I would say I am most curious about life after wrestling. Interestingly enough, like, my focus is to be the best wrestler I can be with the time that I have remaining, but I'm also a guy that's interested in what my life is going to be like after. Most people at 33 years old are transitioning into what they're going to do for the rest of their lives. I'm transitioning out of what I've done for my entire life, So I'm trying to figure out what else I'm passionate about, what else I love, and what I want to pursue. So it's going to be an interesting journey for me. I've been dabbling in a lot of stuff, but I'm curious what I love and what I'll be able to enjoy for the next 40, 50 years.
Awesome answer. And congratulations, by the way, for going to be competing at Worlds, moving up a weight class. I got to ask this. How crazy, like on a scale of 1 to 10 for people that don't know, how crazy is that you move up a class your first time in your career?
Yeah, it's the first time. Since 2011, I've wrestled the same weight class at every tournament since 2011. This weekend was the first time I'd ever wrestled an event up a weight class, and I won first place. So it was good. The good thing was I didn't have to cut as much weight, right? So I typically wrestle at 163. Has been where I won all my world championships and the Olympic Games, and then this weekend I got to wrestle at 174. So it's an 11-pound jump. So guys are a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, but so am I now because I don't have to cut any weight, so I can lift hard, I can wrestle hard, I can train, I can focus primarily on my technique and not losing weight. So most of the time that I'd be spending, on the treadmill and sauna on a Peloton. Now I'm just spinning on technique and wrestling work. So I feel like I've gotten better, more explosive, and it was a lot of fun. So I got my belly's full, and I'm back on Team USA. So I'm excited.
That's right. You might have already answered this. This might be obvious, the Olympic gold medal, but what is your proudest achievement?
My proudest achievement is being a faithful husband, 100%. Like, because it's so hard. It's so difficult to be a good quality husband of integrity and honesty in today's society. So that's my proudest achievement, unquestionably.
That's awesome. All right. This also might be obvious too. Biggest goal not yet achieved.
I mean, I'd like to win the Olympics again. if I want to be a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. I won in 2012. The next Olympics are in 2024. It's a 12-year drought. There's not a lot of people winning Olympic golds 12 years between one another.
Would that be the biggest gap by an Olympic wrestler?
For a wrestler, no. There was just a guy who did it from Cuba this year. He won his first gold was in 2008 in Beijing, and he just won another gold in Tokyo this year. And he's older than I. So it's that would be a proud achievement. But I've got kids now too, so what I want for myself in my personal journey is my thing, but what we want for our kids has become kind of our family thing. Like we want to create individuals that are contributors to society, that operate with kindness, and that are hard workers. And so we love our family. We're excited to add a fourth. We feel like every kid adds a different dynamic, a missing dynamic to the family, and it's just a whole lot of fun. It's constant entertainment. It's hard work, but it's satisfying. It's the hardest job I'll ever love.
Man, that's awesome. I love that you said kindness too. I have 2 rules for my kids. I don't care if they're dumb as a rock when they grow up. I want them to be kind, and I want them to be problem solvers. And if they can do that, everything else is just kind of tied up in that, working hard, having high integrity. And I'm like, if y'all can do that, y'all make me happy. I don't care what you do. Let's see this. All right, let's move to a less intense, all-encompassing question. What's a daily habit you like to stick to? Maybe your favorite.
I like to, So I am what do I like to do? My hobbies. I like to eat. Eating's my favorite thing to do. So like every big city I go to, I have multiple restaurants picked out for every meal: breakfast, lunch, dinner, coffee. I'm a big time eater. We like to cook a lot at home. We have a heavily plant-based organic diet. So that's probably my favorite thing to do is I really enjoy mealtime. But I like cars. I'm really into cars. That's one of my hobbies. I like to follow, listen, watch. I like to drive. I like clothing. I'm into fashion. I like teaching my kids how to wrestle. Both of my kids are in the wrestling, Beacon and Aura. They're 7 and 5. I would say pretty much my day is heavily revolved around like sports, and then just excellence, figuring out what we can do that's really cool. What can we contribute to society that's going to make it better? And then also what kind of good food can we eat today? That's a big part of it.
Oh man. We didn't even talk about this. That's probably a lot of that's due to how much you have to sacrifice to make weight, and at tournaments, just how crazy y'all's schedule is with trying to make weight and stuff. That is the least appealing part of what you do to me.
Yeah, I tell you, you want to know a lot about a man, you just take food away from him. So I've had a lot of hangry days where I'm cutting weight, and the hardest part about cutting weight sometimes is when you got a pregnant wife at home and you're cutting weight and she's having all these cravings and she's eating pancakes at midnight and you're freaking cutting weight because you got to make weight the following day. It's a difficult task, but it's part of what we do. So I don't really take too much. I don't hate it too much.
Oh man, something else. Well, a couple more questions. We'll wrap up. What's a hobby you have that you don't really talk about? I mean, you kind of already answered that with cars and fashion, but anything else that you maybe do for fun?
Yeah, I'm a big reader. Like, I'm an avid reader. It's something I don't really talk about much. The more I've read, the more like I've learned to, so like my mindset some of it's been taught, but most of it's been like read, just because like I'm heavily versed in like so many different avenues of individuals that were excellent at what they did, and that they were able to give knowledge back to people like me who were continuously seeking it. So like whenever I talk, it's less about what I know, and it's more about what someone has once taught me, or something that I experienced, that a lesson that, kind of helped me perpetuate this thought process. So yeah, I like to read. I'm a big time reader. I like to write. So if you go to like my IG, if you look at most of my Instagram captions, they're like very, very long, because I like to tell stories. So my reading and my storytelling is something I like to do. And my dream is to write children's books. At some point, I really feel like I have a good mind to write some really compelling children's stories that would do well.
Body slamming some monsters in some
for sure.
Or something.
No doubt, bro. That'd be awesome.
Man, I love it. Well, do you have a favorite Athletic Brewing beer?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. So I was just thinking about that. There's really 3 of them that we have and we keep in our fridge most often. It's just the Run Wild, Upside Down, and then Free Wave are probably the ones that we consume most often. The great thing for me is I love when I have guests that come to our house and they're like, "Hey, you got anything to drink?" And I'm always like, "Hey, yeah, I love to. We got some beers in the fridge." And so they're like, "What kind?" I'm like, "Oh, there's this company that I work with called Athletic Brewing." And so I don't even tell them that it's non-alcoholic, but I love giving them Athletic Brewing. They're like, "Damn, this is good." I'm like, "Yeah, bro, and it's only got less than 0.5% of alcohol." They're like, "What? No way. This tastes so good." But I've actually been getting into the flavored seltzers too. The day packs I really enjoy. I think they're really good. I like the taste of, I'm a fruity guy. When I was in college and I operated with alcohol, it was always the fruity stuff. So I'm always into the mango and some of the other things that taste good and are refreshing.
Fashion, cars, mangoes. Maybe Miami's in your future, man. I don't know. So, we say brew without compromise because that's what you got to do when you do something different. If you do something out of the box, you got to be excellent all the time. What does it mean to you to live without compromise?
Man, for me, living without compromise is being me, and unapologetically knowing that what I've set out to do, a lot of people won't understand, and that's okay. But it's not okay for me to compromise my goals to fit in. I think about it specifically on last weekend, or Labor Day weekend. I went to my parents' house and I had a barbecue with my family, and I was on the grill and I'm cooking. And there's certain things that they buy, snacks, treats, cakes, and alcohol, and everyone's indulging and enjoying these things. But I had a competition this past weekend. And so it would be easy for me to lose focus and lose discipline in that moment and say, you know what, I'm going to have a cheeseburger, and then I'm going to have, a glass of wine. And I'm also going to have a slice of cake, and I'm going to have some deviled eggs. Or I can make sure that I bring my own salmon, I bring my own bottles of water, and that I'm prepped for my competition the following week. Even though everyone around me is indulging and living the life that is okay with them, I know that this is what I need to be at my best. And so regardless of what they're doing, I can't partake in that, because that will deter me from living excellently and then also performing optimally the following week. And so compromise to me or living without compromise means no matter where I am, who I'm with, what time of the year it is, this is the lifestyle that I've selected for me. And I will remain disciplined within it, regardless of the circumstance. And that's pretty much it, man. No one can deter me from what I want. This is what I want. I know how to get there. This is the schedule I set for myself. Everything else that's not going to help me get there is a distraction. I stay away from it.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to this show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to grow in the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.
A lot of us are looking for ways to start our day feeling more joy and appreciation. And while some of us write gratitude lists or do yoga, others pour themselves a bowl of their favorite cereal, Honey Nut Cheerios. Because not only are Honey Nut Cheerios delicious, they can help lower cholesterol as part of a heart-healthy diet. So maybe the secret to a great mood all day is a little yoga, then writing your gratitude list over a bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios. Learn more about a heart-healthy lifestyle at Cheerios.com.